Okay, so your Photoshop work this week will be about color tinting images. So in this case, a lot of the interfaces, especially in apps, even in Instagram or any of those other apps, sometimes you can, of course, adjust images using filters or some kind of effects. And so we want to be able to simulate this look in our designs. And so I'm going to cover today how to, and if we look at this fabulous, I believe it's Justin Bieber here, image, hold on, we get there. You'll see that there's kind of a color effect that is over top of these images. Okay, so how do we get this sort of look? And sometimes, and I know in Jean's class she teaches duotones and things like that, but there's several different ways of getting these kind of looks. And so in your final actual piece, I'm going to want you to kind of crop and resize them into a layout like this, and I'll explain how to do that. But for right now, let's look at, let me zoom back out. Let's look at how to start. Oof, wow, zoomed out a little bit too far. Let's zoom back in, and there we go. One page is what I'm looking for. So instead of just randomly putting colors over top of photos, what I'm going to want you to do is choose a color palette and then use that color palette to color the photos. So in this case, I know we haven't really talked about color palettes yet and so on, but there's a lot of online tools, and I've listed them here of how to choose colors, and we'll go into a lot more detail later on. But for your Photoshop work this week, I'm going to want you to choose a color palette and then take those colors from the color palette and apply them to a series of photos, and then resize those photos into a app look. And so if we go and look, the first thing I would do is read about the different types of color palettes. There's a good reading online here. It says, Design Jargon explains 6 color schemes. Know the difference between agonist, triad, split complementary color schemes. And so you'll see we could have a monochrome. This is where you choose 3 colors, and so on. So there's a variety, complementary, there's a variety. So read through these, and we're going to learn to save the colors, and then we will open those colors up in Photoshop and apply those colors to the images. And I'm not going to go through all that, right? This part right here, I want you to read it, and then I find it probably easiest just to take a screen grab. So if you're using one of the color tools here, let me delete this here for a moment. If you're using, let's say, this one, I don't know, I was using this one briefly here today. There's a whole bunch of them, and there's a lot of detail on how to use them. For right now, I just want you to practice. So in this case, I'm using, I don't know, I think it was the last one in the list. And of course, they have a whole bunch of color palettes. Usually color palettes have 5 colors. All of them usually save a series of 5 colors. And once you're done saving the colors, it'll give you both the hexadecimal values, which you can type into Photoshop, or of course you can use the eyedropper if you take a screen grab, and that's what I'm going to do here, and take a screen grab of this and then open it up in Photoshop, and then I can use the eyedropper to select the colors to put over top of my pictures. And it also gives you the RGB values here. So in order to take a screen grab of this, I'm on a Mac, I can use the Command-Shift-4, and then I can draw a box over top of what I want, and it saves that image on my computer. In addition, I want you to, of course, try and use photos that are not stolen. And what I mean by stolen, I'd like to use photos that are kind of, you have the rights to use. And in the reading, I kind of talk a little bit about, let me close all this, close this, close this. In the reading, I talk about using Flickr. I like using Flickr because you can type in a topic, let's say flowers, And then after you type in a topic, you have copyright information over here. So let's say I want to find a group of flowers that are that I can use for whatever reason. If you look over here under license right here, you'll notice you got commercial use, modifications allowed, all Creative Commons, commercial use with modification allowed, no copyright restriction at all, and of course U.S. government works. And of course you can use any U.S. government works because these are usually paid by the federal government, which you've already paid taxes for already. And of course no copyright restriction is another one. And so by using these photos, and of course how do you use them? You just find a photo you like, click on it, and then there's a little download button in the corner over here. I'm sure you could figure out how to use. Right here is the download button. Download this photo right here. And maybe you might find a picture that doesn't have a download button. Maybe somebody put some kind of copyright restriction on it. I don't know. But what I'm trying to say is try and use photos that you have rights to use, so that maybe later on when you like these photos, you might want to use them in a portfolio or something like that. I don't know. But try and use ones that you have the rights to use. That all said, let's just get to Photoshop, and that's the important part of this video right now. So again, I actually am using my own pictures because I have the rights to use my own pictures. So I have some photos of some windsurfing. I have some images of more windsurfing. I don't know which one I'm going to use yet. Of course, I got some fair pictures, some mountain pictures, some photo pictures, statue pictures, and some glass sculpture. Okay, so I have a variety of images I can work with. Again, I have the color palette right here that I took a screen grab of and put it in here. First thing I'm going to do is you'll notice that they're all tabbed here in Photoshop at the very top, which is okay. I don't mind them tabbed. One thing I don't want to have tabbed though is the color palette, because I'm going to be working with that. So what you can do is, if they're all tabbed across the top inside of Photoshop, is I can click on the color palette and kind of just drag it with my left mouse down, and it kind of pulls it away. So I can kind of put it over here and have access to it as I'm working. You can also make your own color palette here inside of Photoshop by using swatches. By using swatches, I could select each one of the colors and make my own swatch. We kind of do that in Illustrator class. I haven't really showed how to do that in Photoshop, but it's the same kind of techniques where you can, if you remember from the Illustrator class, I know some of you have already been in there, you can use the same thing where you use the eyedropper tool, like we have inside of Photoshop, and you can select the color that we have here, and you'll notice it starts showing up here at the very top up here. And now I have all of them in my color swatch. They're all right here, the first 5 in this list right here, by using the eyedropper and selecting them. That way I don't need to have this open anymore. But you might want to leave it open because you might want to use the hexadecimal values, which you can type right into Photoshop also, these things right here. So I'm just pointing out, again, you can use the eyedropper. It'll kind of stack them up there, and you can select them all inside of here and make your own group and so on. There's a lot of variety of ways you might want to learn how to do that. I'm not going to cover that right now. Okay, we're going to color the photos, the whole thing. I'm not even going to crop them. I'm going to color them all different ways, and then when we're done coloring them all different ways, we will then crop them and put them into an app kind of interface. So let's talk about coloring these pictures. I kind of like this one with the 2 people. This was kind of shot. The problem with this photo right now is it was shot with the white balance was set at the wrong setting. It was set for indoor white balance when actually this was an outside shot. So that tends to, it's already kind of bluish. But let's say I want to use, I'm going to tint it to different color. I'm going to go all the way back, and notice you can just choose any one of these colors up here, and it will then pop up as the top color over here. So I want the color that I'm going to tint this photo to be on top. So I'm going to actually change this from blue to kind of a nice kind of whatever peach color this is. I don't really know. So again, I have that on top. Next, how do I color that? So there's a whole bunch of different ways. A couple different ways would be to have an overlay where you put a color over top of this. And I know we haven't really talked about layers yet, but we're going to talk about it right now. Inside of Photoshop, you have something called layers, and if you don't see layers in Photoshop, you can always bring them up by going underneath Window, Layers, Window, Layers, and that will bring layers up. And it might be down here in the corner. You can always move it over. I'm going to move it over here so it's a little bigger so we can see it. And so how Photoshop works is that you have different images and they can all be stacked upon each other, and then you can cut them out and do that. So you're going to have to get used to using layers. It's kind of hard at first to understand, but I'm sure once you get used to it, you'll be using it all the time. So I'm going to actually put a color layer over top of this image one way. I know this is probably not the best way, but I'm just going to do it anyways. Where I'm going to make a new blank layer. So to make a new blank layer in the layers window in Photoshop is next to the trash can. You have these little icons down here. And there's a whole bunch of them, and I know there's a million ways, but this is a really quick, easy way. I'm going to make a new blank layer right next to the trash can in the layers window. Boom, makes a new blank layer right over top of my other layer that I have. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to fill that in with color. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to adjust it. So how do I fill this in with color? I'm going to fill it in with color by going under Edit, Fill, Edit, Fill, and I think I did this in another video that we were using before. Edit, Fill, and I'm going to fill it with not white where it says contents. I'm going to change foreground color, which I chose my nice peach color here, my whatever pinkish peach color there, foreground color there, and I hit OK, and it covers the whole thing. Okay, well that's okay. You'll notice it since it's over top of my background. That's the reason why I wanted it to color it. But what we're going to do is we're going to either use a blending mode and maybe some opacity to kind of blend this color. So what you want to do is blend this color down on top of this image. And if you've never used a blending mode before, there's a whole bunch of different ones in here, and let's just go through them real quick. We have a dissolve, doesn't do anything. We have darken, oh, there we go, it gave us some effect. Multiply, color burn, linear burn, color, darken color, lighten, screen, color dodge, linear dodge, lighter color, overlay, and I'm not going to go through all of them. Okay, but notice the problem we have here is it's kind of adjusting the colors a little too much. Oh, actually, that one right there is kind of hard light. That's pretty good. So that kind of gives me the effect I wanted. I wanted to be able to, and I know it doesn't apply the entire color. It kind of shifts the color a little bit from my tint, my original, but that's okay. You get the idea. There's something called blending modes. They're very easy to do, and you can put them over top of your image and apply a color down on top of that. So that one is done. This is the one I wanted. So let's move on to another technique. Again, this was make a new layer, apply a blending mode. In addition, you have opacity here, which you can turn down, and it will adjust the amount of the color that's over top of it. Okay, so that's one way of doing it. Let's do another way. I'm not going to use this one right now. I'm going to not use that one. Oh, here we go. Let's do the fabulous display from the fair. So here's the fair display, and let's do a different technique now. One other technique that that's very old and traditional is called a duotone. And well, actually, I don't want to do a duotone to this one. Maybe this one looks like it would be a much better duotone. So I'm going to start with this one. This one, it has a little goat. And this would make it much better. I think the duotone works well when the image is large. In this case, we have a large goat face here, which I think is a lot better at the technique of a duotone because you have more detail, more objects. This was a very complicated picture with a lot of little details in it, and I'm not sure if that's going to work really well for a duotone. So I'm going to go with this one. In this case, we already talked about how to improve our pictures. Remember, go under Image Adjust. This one is a nice photo, but I might brighten it up a little bit. Add a little bit more contrast. Maybe add some white in there. There we go. We already talked about how to do that in previous ones, so I might just color correct this a little bit. There we go. So what is a duotone and how we use it? Well, in traditional printing, is what it would do is you would use two colors, hence the word duo means two. And so when we used to use printing presses back in the days, there was a technique where you could have a black ink and a color ink and print something in two colors, basically duotone, two colors. And so what we do is remove all the color information from this image and then add add one color to it, hence duotone. So before I do that, I'm going to choose the color I want to add to this. We did the peach already. Let's do the purple. So I'm going to choose the purple here. So the first thing I'm going to do is remove the color. To remove color and get it to be like a black and white image, we go under Image, Adjustment, and then we go, Mode, Image Mode, and we're going to go all the way to where it says Grayscale, the first one that you can select there. And then it's going to say, hey, you want to get rid of all the color information? Sure. All the color information's gone. It's kind of like a black and white photo, which is kind of cool. You might want to use this technique to put your, use a black and white image. But really I want to add another color into this scheme. To do that, I'm going to go back underneath Image Mode, and we're going to go to Duotone. And under Duotone, you can add, I was doing red yesterday when I was practicing this for you, so I'm going to change this. And, I don't remember my web colors. Do you remember that? I don't think I can come over. Oh, I can suck my purple up. I just went over to the eyedropper, sucked my purple up. I'm going to hit OK. You can see it's adding the color to the image. You can adjust the amount of color and how it's done by using curves. We already looked at curves. There's like a little box next to the Duotone option here for curves, and it looks like yesterday when I was practicing this, I added some curves to it. And so we're gonna add a little bit more contrast here. I kind of like, I want some bright. There we go. There we go. So add a little curves to my image, and boy, this one has a nice sort of look to it. I'm gonna go with it. Okay, so that was a Duotone option. Again, it was all done using the mode option under Image Mode, Grayscale, and then going to Duotone and applying a color. Very nice. I think this one's going to work well. Okay, I've got 3 more to do. Let's try some other techniques. Okay, here we go. We got a mountain here. In this mountain, there is, and let's get back to the layers window. In this mountain, there is also another option that is down here. These are called layer effects, and the reason why is you're applying an effect in the layer window. So this is all done using the actual layer window itself. And if you go down here to the very bottom of the layer window, you'll see we don't need to necessarily make a new one. I think it makes a new layer automatically for us. But you'll notice you got this option. It kind of looks like a circle with a line going through it, and these are called layer adjustments. Okay, so if I click on there, you can see you have a variety of different options. You get solid color, gradient, pattern, brightness, contrast, levels, curves, exposure, vibrance, hue and saturation, color balance, black and white, photo filter. And these are all the ones that we looked at before that we were doing up here underneath adjustments here. It's just you're going to do it on a layer above this image to apply it. And so that the advantage of doing it on a layer above this layer is that you can then change it later. Whereas if you're doing it up here, it's going to adjust the original image. So by doing it down here, you're doing it in a layer above the image, and then you can always go back and adjust it. So I know I didn't show you that, but that's why I'm showing it now. It's right here. The one I'm going to use is I'm just going to do hue and saturation here. Let's see what that looks like. And of course you say, well, where's the options? I can't see any options. Well, there is a pop-up menu for that. And if you don't see it and it's not necessarily showing up, you go under Window and you go to Properties. So it's under Window Properties. And here's the properties. This is the options that you can use to adjust this image now. Again, it's on a layer that's above the original picture. And so I can adjust the hue, and you can see it's adjusting the hue of the image. Hue means color. Saturation means the amount of color. And lightness is brighter or darker of the image. And then there's a colorize option that will colorize it completely. And this is kind of the option that we're looking at. We're trying to and it's using the purple for some reason. I guess since I had purple last, I was wondering if I could choose another color before I do this. No, it didn't let me do it. Oh, that's because I have purple here. And I'm not really sure how I can choose my duotone color in here. Okay, so, but this is another technique. Now, it's adjusting the entire image to a spin. This kind of looks like that. Let me adjust this. There's my kind of peachish color. There we go. Okay, again, it's applying the color to the entire image by using this color. If I don't choose to colorize, it changes all the colors to the hue. But if I turn the colorize on, it goes to one color for the whole thing. So this is kind of the look I was looking for. Again, I was using an adjustment layer, what's called an adjustment layer, above, and the one I was using was hue and saturation. I'm going to just move the properties out of the way here. And so this one is done. Again, you can get to these adjustment layers by clicking on the pull down menu, and there's a whole bunch of them. You might want to try some of these. They all will do something different, and so you can try those. But this looks good. I'm going to move on. Okay, so we got two more to do. We got a photo of this one, and maybe that one, and maybe a rose. Oh, we got a sculpture too. I don't know how many I did. How about we do this one? We're taking a photo, kid taking photo. Another technique that I find very useful, and let me choose a color before I start. We got purple. We haven't done the blue yet, I don't think, have we? Okay, we're going to go with the blue with this one. Is by taking the a shape and putting it over top of the image. And there is shape layers here. And before I draw my shape, I'm going to make a new blank layer. Again, I'm still using the layers window inside of Photoshop here. I'm going to make a new blank layer. It shows up over top of my background again. Again, it's next to the trash can here until you make a new blank layer. Then I'm going to use the rectangle tool, which is right here. And these are shapes. We're going to be using these pretty much a lot in this class, so you're going to have to get used to them. They make kind of vector shapes like you would have inside of Illustrator. And it's going to draw the vector shape kind of in the same color as whatever color I have chosen. Since I've chosen the blue so far, it'll show up there. I'm going to draw the box over top of my image just by drawing a rectangle, the whole size. Look, it covers the whole thing. Covers the whole thing. And hence, I kind of have the same techniques. Again, you have an opacity here where I can turn the opacity down, and you can start seeing that image coming through. I can then go and maybe try one of my blending modes. And then that looks pretty good. You're getting some nice duotone, or almost duotone look there. And probably needed to increase the contrast of this background image, so you might need to exaggerate the image in the background to give you more of an effect. So I'm just going to adjust the levels of that. Again, I went to the photo that's in the background, and I went to levels and adjusted it, as you can see, before and after. I really wanted to exaggerate it so the image shows up a lot better, because I'm going to end up shrinking this down anyways. Okay. So there's that technique, and now let's do one more. Should we do the sculpture? Well, there's a sculpture here. Which color have I not used yet? Did I use this pink color? Maybe I haven't used this pink color. I'm going to go with the pink color here. Okay, so another technique you can use for adjusting your color, of course, was the I don't know which one I should use next. I'm just drawing a blank here of which one I want to use. I'll just do a simple one again. I'm just going to, because I want to move on to something new here. But you see how there's different techniques to changing colors here. I'm just going to go with the very last one I did, where I make a new layer, or the very first one I did, where I make a new layer and then fill that layer in with a color. And then apply one of my effects here. Whoosh, not that one. That looks pretty good. What was the one I wanted to show you? There was another one, and I can't remember what it was. I'm going to turn the opacity down a little bit here. Maybe adjust the contrast of the one underneath it. Okay. There we go. Okay. So I have several pictures that have different color effects on top of them. So the last thing I want you to do is put it together inside an iPhone-looking interface. And I know we haven't really looked at how to do the template yet. And what I mean by template is, if I go to the internet, I can go. Again, we're going to cheat this time. I'm going to go to Google, and then I'm going to say iPhone 6 template. If I can get to Google. iPhone 6 template. Oh, template. Spell it. There we go. And so we can download kind of what the interface will look like. Whoosh, that's a pretty ugly one. I didn't really prepare for this part. I just wanted to show you the color. I'm just looking for a template looking black and white that we could open inside and then apply on top. What is this one? This one clearly doesn't look like it's large enough. This is not very high resolution, any of these. This one is. I'm going to cheat and use this one. And I'm going to go and I'm going to right click on it, say copy image. I'm going to go back to Photoshop and say file new. I'm going to hit OK and I'm going to paste image. So file new, and don't do anything, just hit OK, and then paste is Command V on the keyboard, or edit paste will paste it. So you can copy and paste directly. And then let's just crop out here. I'm going to crop out. I'm just going to go with the white one here. I'm going to crop this out, crop this out. I'm going to hit return. I don't like this black inside here. I'm going to put my images in there. I guess we could leave it black and just put the images over top of it if you want to do that. I'm not even sure if this is the right size right here. Let's see what is the correct size. If I go under File, New inside of Photoshop, you can go to where it says Document Type, and we can choose under where it says Document Type. There's all the different pre-made ones in there. We can say App Design, Mobile App Design, and we can choose, okay, this is 750 by 1334. It's the iPhone 6 interface inside. I guess it's close enough. I mean, if I measure this, so we're looking at 1,334 pixels high. Let's just see, image size. Yeah, okay, so that's a size. You can do that if you want, if you don't want to have the whole iPhone interface. Let me measure the inside here. I'm going to use the measuring tool. We looked at the measuring tool when we were learning how to straighten a photo. Remember that? We were using the ruler tool. And let's just draw a line and let's see how big this is here. Oh, it's showing me, yeah, it's about big enough. Okay, I'm just going to go with it. We're just simulating right now. So I'm going to go and take those images and put them over here and then kind of crop them around so that they fit into a collage. I want you to do a collage like you saw kind of the Justin Bieber thing where you have, 5 different pictures kind of collaged inside here. To do that, let's just talk about it. So here's the first one. In this case, one of the problems that you'll run into is if I'm going to copy and paste from this image to the iPhone, I need to, of course I'm going to crop this a little bit, so I'm going to use the crop tool. Let me crop this down now. Crop it down to kind of a square. Oh, I don't want to move that. I'm going to crop. Okay, there we go. Some kind of nice photo there. And I'm going to hit the checkbox here to make sure it's cropped. Now, I can't really copy and paste because the problem is I have them as a group here. Now, we could make them into a smart object and copy and paste that, but let's not get into smart objects right now. Let's just go, and what I'm going to do is flatten it. So I guess here's the problem that you're going to run into is you can't really copy both layers at the same time. I guess we could select them all and copy them at the same time. Let me try that. Select both layers by holding the Shift key down. So if I click on one layer, hold the Shift key down, click on the other layer, and I hit Command C to copy. And let's go over to my iPhone 6 interface and hit Command V. Yeah, that didn't really work. What did it do? I have no idea what it did. So I'm not going to do that. Let me go back. Let me try hit. I'm going to squish these down onto one layer, and then I'm going to select them all and copy and paste. So to squish these down, remember the color image and the background image, to squish these down into one layer, in the upper right corner of the layers window is a pop-up window, and I'm going to use the merge visible option or flatten image, one of these towards the bottom of the pop-up window. Again, where is this pop-up window? It's in the upper right corner of the layers window. If you cannot find it there, you can also do the merge these two layers down. Remember, once you merge them down, you won't be able to change the color later. So you might want to save this as a Photoshop file first, then squish them down. So if you're working on this and you're working on doing things, You might want to save these things as Photoshop before you continue. But again, I'm going to go underneath the merge. You can also do merge under layers here. And you got merge, visible, merge, or flatten image here. It's also under a pop-up window under layers. Once it's been squished down into one layer, I can use the Command A to select all, Command C. Of course, if you're using Windows, it would be Control A to select all and Control C for copy. Then I go over to my iPhone interface and then hit Command V. Now it's going to be really big, but of course you can shrink it down, holding your cursor along the edge of the image. So I'm going to shrink that down, shrink this down. Again, I'm using the move tool, and once you're using the move tool, you should have little handles that go around the outside, and I can shrink it down. I'm going to kind of squish this one in the upper corner here of my iPhone, maybe kind of like that. There we go. Maybe let a little black come through. And when I'm done, I'm going to hit the checkbox. Boom. So again, we can enlarge it later or make it smaller. I'm going to get all the images over, then I'm going to move them around and get them to fit together. So I got that one. Again, we never used that one. Oh, we got our goat. Boy, this image is fine just the way it is. I don't even have more than one layer, so I can just simply easily select all. Command A, Command C, go over to my phone icon template, Command V, and it's going to be really big. Again, I'm using the move tool and I can shrink these down very easily, or you can actually scale them like this. Oop, you got to make sure let's not do that. Make sure you lock. If you're going to use, there's some options up here for width and height. I think I demonstrated that once, where you can lock the width and height, and then you can put your cursor over the H or the W, and you can kind of scale it, drag, it will make it scale. You might have to, if it's outside the viewable area, move it around. Here we go. And so this one I might leave, whoosh, it's such a good image, I might leave it full screen. So I'm going to leave that full screen for right now. So we have a goat. Let me go to another one. Oh, here's our mountain. This mountain's good, but I'm going to crop this one too. I'm going to crop it down. No, I do like some of the... We'll go with more of a square look for this one. And again, before I'm done, I'm going to hit the checkbox to make sure it's cropped, and then again flatten the image or squish it all down into one layer, and then Command A on the keyboard, Command C to copy, and then go and paste it, Command V. And of course we need to shrink it down using the move tool. Shrink it down. Whoosh, there's a lot of work, isn't it? Yeah, I know it's a lot of work, but here we go. I'm going to shrink this down kind of small. Okay, so we have that one. I think we have two more. Oh, we got this one. Probably crop this a little bit. I make it kind of long and skinny so it kind of fits in next to one of the other photos. Kind of like it like that. And then hit the checkbox and then flatten this image. Again, you can go under layer, flatten image, and then copy is Command A on the keyboard, Command C, and then go over to my thing, Command V, and again use the move tool, shrink it down. Shrink it down, shrink it down. Probably I'm going to squeeze in the edge there, yeah. And then I think I have one more, don't I? No, not that one. Oh, this one. And again, this one I'm going to have to probably make long and skinny too, so I'm going to crop this one kind of long and skinny. Long and skinny using the crop tool again. And then checkbox that so it takes it. Again, flatten this image so it's all on one layer. Command A, Command C, go over, Command V. And of course shrink that down. Shrink it down. There we go. It's probably going to be a small one too. Okay, here we go. So let me zoom in. So I have all my layers in there. You can see you might even name them over here. You should probably name your layers. You just click on the word and name it. You know what I mean? I'm not going to do that. But you could do that when you have time. Again, I'm going to use the move tool. I'm going to move things around. Maybe shrink some down a little bit smaller. Oops, not rotate them. shrink them down. Maybe squeeze this one in next to that one. Shrink that one down. They don't all have to be, they can stick out a little bit like that. Maybe my goat. I'm going to take my goat and put it at the bottom. Take this and put it in here maybe. Or maybe shrink that down over here. There we go. Move it underneath here. Maybe shrink it down just a little bit more. I want a little black around each image. And you can add a stroke if you want to apply it. And then maybe this one goes in here. There we go. Of course, probably get rid of the iPhone 6 text that's underneath it. There we go. Okay, so that's what I'm looking for you to do this Photoshop week. Again, probably get rid of the black iPhone 6 text that's back there. I'm just going to highlight that and fill it with black. Black. There, text is gone. And so I'm looking for you to make a collage in the interface of an iPhone. iPhone 6 is fine, or Android if you really want. It doesn't really matter. The important thing is you know how to give these little tones that you would kind of Instagram kind of has a lot of these different tones, and then save as a PNG and post on Canvas.